This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is Cory Marks. Cory is a North Bay, Ontario native. He's redefining the boundaries of country and rock with his unapologetically bold sound, influenced by his upbringing among country and rock legends like Merle Haggard and the high-energy rock bands like Rush and Ozzy Osbourne. Marks has forged a style that is distinctively his own. His upcoming album, Sorry for Nothing, produced by Kevin Churko, Kile Odell, and Andrew Baylis, showcases his unique blend. The title track, Sorry for Nothing, alongside the chart-climbing single, Make My Country Rock, highlights his musical evolution and ability to bridge audiences from honky-tonks to rock arenas. Make My Country Rock epitomizes Mark's fusion of hard-hitting country and guitar-driven rock, energizing listeners with his authentic chorus. Reflecting on themes of perseverance, family, and the unpredictable highs and lows of life, Marks brings a raw, authentic voice to both country and rock scenes, paving his own lane and uniting fans of both genres with an unforgettable ride. It's a pleasure to have you on. Hey, Cory.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Hey.
It is
good to be here.
So
Thanks
much,
for having me.
It is so much fun to have you on. You know, it's so interesting. I'm a fan of yours. And
Thank you.
Just last week, I sent a message to one of my friends, and I'm like, you won't believe it's going to be on the show, Cory. And she was like, are you kidding me? She wrote it like in all caps, like in her text to me, are you kidding me? So you do have a fan base, which is so great.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. You know, I went back and I started looking at some things you had done in the past, and I didn't realize you've been at this for quite some time now. So, and busier more than ever, I think. So I know you're on the road. You're probably sitting in a hotel. So, so we could start with the present and kind of move back towards your past. So, where are you now?
Right now, I'm in Red Bank, New Jersey. I'm out on tour with Theory of a Dead Man. Tomorrow night, we play here. It'll be number 6 of 18 on this tour. And it's good to be back across the U.S. It's a long travel days. It's some days, and but the shows have all been really, really great, and I'm just really thankful and happy to be out here on the road doing what I love.
So the tour schedule. So you're in New Jersey, which is on the East Coast. Where is that tour? What's the track of that tour? Is it going south or is it going out west?
It's a little bit everywhere, but it's more. I think it's more central and east. You know, we played a couple shows in Ohio. You know, there's New Jersey, New York, but we do end up down in Knoxville, but we'll be in Kansas City as well. It's kind of more central. We go a little obviously east where we are now in New Jersey and New York, but then we kind of come back towards Ohio and make our way through like Kansas City and Knoxville, Tennessee is probably I think the furthest south we go.
So the band that you're playing with, do you want to describe what they're like, or what is it like sharing the stage with them?
As in Theory of a Dead Man? I mean, they've been around for, you know, it's crazy. It's been 25 years, and you know, they're a legendary rock band in Canada, and you know, they've been crushing it down here in the States for their entire career. So it's really an inspiration for me to see, you know, Canadian boys like Theory of a Dead Man that have such a great success here in America and over, you know, across the pond as well, as we say. So it's been fun, a lot of fun. And we have a brand new song out called Living My Life Like a Country Song that I feature. I mean, it's on their 2012 album, but they recut it, made it a little more rock, but added me to the mix, I guess, to countrify it a little bit. And it's their current single right now. And it's a blast to go up there, open the show acoustically. And, you know, about 6 songs into their set, they invite me back on to sing Living My Life Like a Country Song. And it's been a lot of fun.
That's so great. So right now, just so the audience knows, we're like in the heat of the election time. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure crazy. Your crowds are probably like from both sides of the aisle, right? So what has been have you seen any kind of energy of the election in your shows, or totally avoidance of that, and they're just there for the music and to rock out?
I think, that's the magic thing about music, and certainly live music, is it, it kind of takes you out of the real world for a couple hours, and puts you in, a state of either nostalgia, excitement. The shows have been full. They've been great. They've been loud. And I think everybody is just there through the power of music. And it's a real special thing. I myself am not a political guy whatsoever. So even if there was anything going on, I wouldn't even notice it.
That's amazing. I spent 30 years in the military. I was in the Army Reserve, and I did 1 year in Iraq. So unfortunately,
well, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I have followed politics my entire career in the military, so it kind of like goes hand in hand. But I always find it interesting because in music, there are a lot of musicians that have become very political, where they actually take a stand, they take a side. And so I just figured I would mention it. But there is a lot of energy right now with what's going on. So that's cool. So I'm very happy you're on tour. You're in New Jersey. I wanted to go back to, I don't really know you as a person. I've been learning your music. I've been really excited learning your music. But what is Cory like growing up? What was Cory like as a young lad in Canada?
A young lad. Well, of course, played a lot of hockey. I've been on skates since I was 2 or 3 years old. So, I come from a hockey family. My brother was drafted to the Columbus Blue Jackets in 2007. He played 14 years of pro hockey, and he's now on his 4th year as an assistant coach in Major Junior. He was actually coaching over in Seattle for the last 3 years. Brought him to a championship, and they lost in the Memorial Cup finals, which is a really big thing in the hockey world. But now he's back home after all these years. He was gone for 21 years, and he's finally back home. So it's nice to have the big fella back. And but I myself played some major junior, had some opportunities to go to, play for Ohio State University Division I. And I myself ended up in the military world. I was not fully in yet, but I was attending the Royal Military College of Canada, enrolled as a pilot. As a kid, I was always obsessed with airplanes. I still am. I'm a pilot myself, and I always had a dream of being a fighter pilot. Thankfully, I've had the opportunity since then to fly with our Canadian Forces Snowbirds, which is like the U.S. Blue Angels or Thunderbirds. So I've gotten that opportunity, which is a huge bucket list for me. That was a lot of fun and definitely a thrill of a lifetime. But I was a kid that I was a drummer before any of this. I would never dare singing in front of anybody. So it's kind of odd in a way that I'm doing this now. Not to mention the only thing I ever failed was grade 10 music, out of all things. And here I am. I've had a 13-year career so far, and things are looking brighter and bigger and better. So that's always exciting to be, I guess, in a sense, rewarded for the work put in. But I come from a small town, North Bay, Ontario. It was a very big military city, probably before my time. It's still military, but not as big as it was. And a big hockey town, blue collar, hardworking, salt of the earth kind of people. And I have one brother. We both grew up playing lots of hockey, and hockey was his thing, and still is very much so. But I was always into, I loved music. I loved airplanes. I loved hockey. And then when I got into my teens, I loved to party a little bit too. So I kind of did a little bit of everything. Maybe that's why I like this whole lifestyle of being on the road.
Wow. So what were your family like? Your parents or those that were raising you? Were they really music people, or where did you get your earlier influences from?
Well, so going back, my mom was the baby of 8, and my dad is, I think, in the middle of 5. But that being said, my dad was from Toronto, Ontario. My mom was from a little small cow town, Earlton. And so it's kind of cool how they ended up meeting in North Bay, where I'm from, in the mid 80s. But that being said, my dad being from Toronto, of course, huge Rush fan. He's seen Rush like 30 times. We got to go see Rush together twice or 3 times now. Or no, twice. We got to see them twice. But I was very lucky, fortunate to grow up in a family full of music, in a sense of, so my dad, not only was a Merle Haggard fan and Waylon Jennings and Buck Owens and all that great country music. Well, I grew up on a lot of Rush, Deep Purple, Grand Funk Railroad, and, Bryan Adams and Ozzy. And it was quite the variety. And then later on in my teens, it's my dad, when I was like 10 years old, showed me my first, told me about this band called Arch Enemy. And it was this, it's a metal band. I didn't really get into that stuff till later in my teens as my drumming got a little more progressed. But my mom was also, on her side of the family. See, again, she's the baby of 8. Well, her baby being me, I was the last, kind of always say the last one out of the whole litter. I was born on the same day as my grandfather, her dad. We're 65 years apart. They called us the evil twins. And so I shared a lot of birthdays together. I know the Thanksgiving this year, anyways, later on in November. But of course, up in Canada, it's usually typically like the second week of October. My birthday's October 11th. Our birthday's October 11th. So we would often go up to Earlton and spend time with her side of the family. And that's where the guitars, the fiddles, and all that great country music would come out right at just at the kitchen table. And of course, then was, a lot of smoke-filled kitchens with cold beer and thick air. But so I was very fortunate to grow up on a wide variety of music. And my dad plays guitar, plays drums, and he basically taught me the main rudiments of both those instruments. And I kind of fell onto the drums, and guitar was later on and into more like later in high school, like when I graduated around 17, 18 years old is when I kind of started picking up the guitar. I never learned it as well as the drums, but I'm still in work in progress.
Well, your story is so interesting to me. One of my friends is Travis Cormier. He's also from Canada. He is a singer. He also plays guitar. His story is very similar to yours because he's from a very small town in Canada. And he, like you said, like it was kind of music was around the family, So it's very interesting, especially for me, being from the States. I only know a handful of people in Canada, and all parts of Canada are different. So when you say like my dad's from this side, so to us it's like okay, but it's literally saying like New York and California. I mean, it's like different vibes in different areas.
Totally.
And it also, I find with that, creates personalities are different or backgrounds of family are different. So it's interesting. And then you said another thing, which I just like smiled on the inside. I was born many years before you. I'm much older. But I was born on my mom's dad's birthday. And it was,
wow.
And I was just like, oh my God, I've never met anyone else that had that exact thing.
And what month is that?
So June 2nd. Yeah. So he was June 2nd. I was June 2nd. And it was in the 1960s. And you were not allowed to be around the baby. The only one that was allowed to be around the baby was the dad. So my grandfather was a bit of a character. So he actually like climbed up the staircase and snuck in so that he could see me. Kind of all very Groucho Marx-ish of him.
Can I ask what year?
Yes, 1968.
Okay, I thought you were going to say 65 because I was going to say that would have been kind of cool because my grandfather was 65 when I was born, so I was going to be like, that would make it even,
Yeah, well, yeah, 1968.
But my mother was born in 58, so.
Oh, wow, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing though, it's amazing how times have changed. And I know when you were born, probably anybody could be in the delivery room. Things were changed in the 80s. So
I can't remember. I don't remember that far.
Yeah, well, I was actually graduating nursing school the year you were born, so I can tell you exactly. Cool. They were letting everyone in.
Exciting.
Very cool. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting that you do have the concept of starting with drums because I'm friends with a lot of drummers and, it's kind of interesting. Not everyone is drawn to the drums. And then later on, sometimes they pick up other instruments, but, there's something about doing drums that kind of in some way helps them with singing. So did you see the bridge in that with like finding the timing in drumming?
Yeah. Timing and tempo, certainly energy. It's funny because my drummers will always say it's funny because, certain songs I'll always see my left foot stomping, but I can't help but like keep time and be into that song. And another person I see doing that, which is kind of ironic, is Bryan Adams. So I think it's really cool that after seeing him live a couple of times, you're like, oh, he does that foot thing too. That's kind of fun.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, that's another Canadian reference. I had Glass Tiger on my show last week. They're
Oh,
Canadians
awesome.
too. Yeah.
Yes,
And
yes, of course.
they had a great story about Brian Adams because they actually had him singing background on one of their songs, and it actually made the album. And again, it was around the time you were probably an infant. So
That is insane because just most recently, and I'm pretty sure it's "Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone."
that's the
Okay,
song. He
there's
sings on
backup for the
that.
vocals. I literally am like the last few months. I'm like I gotta ask. His name is Reed. Um,
Sam Reed. Yeah, he was on
Sam
my
Reed.
show. Yeah.
He also got to fly the Snowbirds. I almost wanted to reach out to him and be like, "Did you get Brian Adams on the?" Because there's no other voice, and I'm like, I'm telling you, there's. It's crazy that you're saying this because
Yeah, well, he
I've been beating
confirmed
myself
it.
up.
He confirmed it on my
It is
radio
him.
show. Yeah, yeah,
Damn,
yeah.
I'm good.
So you can go back and listen to that
My
episode.
heart will break.
Yeah,
It's in the background. You hear that my heart will break
yeah.
or whatever he's saying. I'm like,
So
that's Brian
the
Adams.
great
Wow.
part of that story is that the singer is Alan Few. And
Yep. Mhm.
Alan and Sam were telling the story, and it kind of came up like, what is your kind of connection with Brian Adams? And they were like, oh, we were just kind of, and I think Alan says, I think we're sitting together having like a couple of Guinnesses, and someone says, why don't you guys sing? And they do it, and they took the cut for the album, and that's exactly how it came about. So when you hear him in my interview, it comes across
That's
like they were
nice.
just kind of like goofing off and stuff. So that's really cool. Yeah, I love the Canadian connections. That's really awesome. So wow, I know. So this is like we have a lot in common here, you and I. This is
Yeah, that's actually
very
I
cool.
recorded the first studio I ever recorded was at Sam Reed Studio, just
Oh
outside of Toronto.
wow! Oh wow! That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, Sam
Yeah.
has a if Sam listens to this, he's gonna smile. He has an SSL in his studio, and three of my friends worked with SSL, and they were like, the subject matter experts on it here in New York City. But SSL goes back to one of the beginning, soundboard systems and all that. So Sam and I had an SSL conversation before the interview started. So he is really a lot of fun. Both of them are really a lot of fun. And they just, during their interview, and I always ask people this, like if you had someone that wanted to like join, be a singer, be a recording artist, be a producer, tell me a positive and a negative. So, and I think even at your young age, you can easily do that because someone could approach you and say, hey, I want to be on a hockey team. Someone could approach you and said, hey, I was thinking about, oh, my son wants to go flying. Or
Mhm.
hey, I think I might want to go on the road, but I'm not sure. You have like so many experiences at such a young age, which is
Yeah.
really, really great. But also, you can see when you describe it, when someone comes to me and says, should I join the military? I always, preface it with my experience was, because theirs
Yeah.
could be totally different.
Absolutely.
So being young and being on the hockey, I have to go back over that because it's such huge culture for Canada, hockey. And it's really huge culture here, especially in New York.
Hmm.
I mean, there's
Yep.
family members that can't talk hockey because one's like the Rangers and one's like the Islanders, and there's like
Yeah. Yeah.
all sorts of stuff that goes on. So I am a very weak skater. I'm one of those people where my ankles kind of fall in and my hands start shaking. So
Yeah.
tell me about confidence on the ice because I have to trace it back to your confidence on stage. So there's got to be something there where skaters take a lot of risks. So what positions did you play on the team, or what was your defense kind of like? Because I'm really not familiar with the sport, so it would be great.
Well, I played multiple positions. I played a little center. I was mostly a winger growing up and into my teens and into my junior years. I played some defense as well, but in the summertime, we'd also play roller hockey. But in roller hockey, I was a goalie. So I really admired that the whole concept, especially goalies with having painted masks and the cool pads and stuff. So that was, I was just a fan of that. But that's what I would do in the summer. And but I've played every position essentially, and but mostly winger in my hockey career. And I think as far as the energy or confidence, I look at it more as like a sport. When I'm going up there on stage, it's like I get ready for a game. I'm focused. I also compare it to the snowbirds, getting ready, they're just human. We're all just human like anybody else. But once it comes to game time, I guess if we're doing a hockey reference, it's you put your game face on and you got to focus on the task at hand and what you're going out there to do. So a lot of it's reference to, like, for me, it's, again, I'll reference the snowbirds along with hockey. There's a lot of travel. There's a lot of work and practice prior to showtime, or prior to the game. You got to put the work in. But most of all, it's a team effort. There's a group of people that that are there to help you and support you, and you're kind of all in it together. But everyone plays a different role, whether you're a right winger, a center, a defenseman, a goalie, or you're the lead solos on the team, the boss, the number one, or the inners or outers on their 9 plane formation. So everyone's got a job to do, and I like to think you got to do it well. And for them, obviously, there's not much room for error. But also, when I'm live, I don't really want to make any errors either. At least the ones that are noticeable. So I think a lot of that is, I compare that. And going back on our previous conversation with Sam Reed, I remember going to the studio, and one of the first. I'm not a gear guy. I don't know much about gear, and I call them gear nerds. Like my guitarist would be like, this is the SX whatever, and this is this pedal and the XM50 whatever. But I saw a picture of him in the cockpit of a Tudor jet, which is the jet the snowbirds fly. So Sam Reed actually flew with the snowbirds as well. And I remember going in there being like, man, I hope one day I could be a big enough artist to get the opportunity to fly at the snowbirds. And ultimately I did in 2017 at the Abbotsford International Air Show. I flew with the snowbirds. And so yeah, it's a bit of a mixed influence between hockey, sport, and of course aviation and snowbirds and flying mixed into this crazy world of music.
So how were you invited to fly with them in 2017? How does that just come about?
So it's a crazy, crazy story. So I've been a fan of theirs since I was a young boy, just like many, many Canadians. And they were playing North Bay, my hometown, for Canada Day back in 1998. And they were doing this meet and greet with the pilots, a dinner type thing. We can go and have dinner with the pilots and meet them, and they have merch and all that kind of stuff. So I remember my mom saying, like, Paul, to my dad, Paul, you gotta take him. Like, this is you gotta take him. But she also noticed on the team, there was a pilot on the team that was from North Bay, and she actually worked with his dad. So, it'd be nice to introduce you to him, and so on and so forth. So when we get to this place, there's the dinner tables lined up, but they have the snowbirds numbers and names and where they're from. And right then and there, I can almost see it now. I remember seeing Snowbird 8, Captain Marcus, Walton, North Bay, Ontario. I was, Dad, I want to sit here. Because in my mind, I thought, if he could do it from North Bay, then, I can do it too. Anyone could do it, no matter where you're from. So that was always an inspiration. Hence why I typically, growing up until we got into the double digits, I always wore number 8 on the hockey team. I always wanted number 8. That was my favorite number. And we became pen pals up until about grade 10. So we would write each other every now and then. And there's a really cool picture of, I know you're going to love this. There's a really cool picture of him. Literally, I'm like a 10-year-old boy, and he's taking me out of his airplane. There's a picture of me with Dad beside the jet and young Marcus at 34 years old. And you fast forward, and we stopped talking to each other. Just life got busy, and it was really cool. He was teaching me some of the programs. He's an ex-fighter pilot as well, so it was really, I was infatuated with that. But he'd always tell me in the letters, like, girls like the hockey players more, and they make a lot more money, so keep doing the hockey thing, which is really cool. But unfortunately, I didn't do the hockey thing until much longer. But down the line, I was on a cross Canada tour with an artist and a good friend of mine called Aaron Pritchett, and it was in 2015, and we were in, I believe it was Comox, BC, or Trails, BC. And after my performance, so there was an act before me opening the night, and then there was myself, and then Aaron was the headliner. And after my set, I was doing a meet and greet prior to Aaron going on, and I do this meet and greet, and there's this lady there, and she goes, hey, Cory, I'm like, well, listen, I said, there's a bit of a lineup, so let me go tend to that first, and I'll come talk to you, because there's something we had to chat, and she's like, go do your thing and come see me after. So I start chatting with her, and she's like, I see, you have a military background or wanted to be a military pilot, and so on and so forth. She's like, my husband's from North Bay, actually, and he was a fighter pilot, and so on and so forth. He works for WestJet now. And I said, sorry, what's your name again? She goes, well, it's Gina. I said, you said your husband was a fighter pilot? She's like, yes, but he also flew the Snowbirds too. I'm like, Captain Marcus John Boy Walton, Snowbird 8, 1997, 98. You're Gina Walton. And instantly, even now I got goosebumps. Instantly, she just started like tearing up. She's like, oh my God, you're Cory? You're she's like, we have all your drawings, all your letters in a box. It was the wildest thing. And now Marcus and Gina will come to my shows. And it's like, he was my rock star, but now I'm his rock star. It's at the same age that I met him, it's I've got goosebumps right now because I don't get to share that story too often. So there was that. I mean, it's crazy. And now, we pretty much talk a couple times a week, and Marcus will be like, hey man, I heard your songs, love it. He'll let me know where he's going now with WestJet. And if there's any shows near them, they come to my shows. It's absolutely, it's pretty wild. I don't even know what the question was or why I was saying that.
No. It was a perfect story, though. It's so funny, though, because I believe in past lives. I believe in reincarnation. Not everybody does. But that story to me is really incredible because you draw a line from A to B. And a lot of times that line from A to B stops there. But yet you found the C to D. It's like years later, you still make the connection, and you are still in contact. It's his career that brought you together, but now it's your career that keeps you together. Because he's not doing that anymore. He's not that guy anymore. And it's kind of interesting. That piece of it to me is so amazing. You probably are a songwriter, but I'm sure there's a song in that story somewhere, literally, because when I see fighter jet, I see that kind of we call it like stunt flying in some way. I automatically go
calculated
back.
risk.
Yeah, I automatically go back to the 1940s when you would see that those fighter pilots had the painted lady on the side, and the stories about World War II, and not knowing if they were going to get out of a dust up,
come back.
Exactly, yeah. So that to me, there's a very romantic side of that story. It's kind of interesting because it's kind of like fate. When somebody says why did this happen? It's quite possible you sat next to the guy and you didn't really connect, or he wasn't a letter writer, and it would have been like, okay, I had a one meet and greet and that was it, but there's something about fate that kind of followed the path there. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's just incredible.
It's pretty wild. And even this past summer, was it this summer? Yeah, it was this summer that passed. I actually wrote a song called Snowbirds. And the first line of the song is I've been dreaming of flying since I was a kid,
Oh, wow. I didn't know that song.
Yeah.
You might have another song in you.
Well, I was actually just saying this the other day I forget who it was, someone on tour, and we were having a chat. And I have 3 albums out now since 2015, but I think there's only 3 songs out of those 3 albums that I didn't write. So I typically write all my own stuff, my own stories, or at least have a good chunk or good part of it. So that's one of the things that I think I got better at and continue to grow as a writer as well as time goes on. And of course, as life passes by and goes on, you develop things to talk about, different stages in your life and people you love or that are in your life going through things. It's not typically always about myself. It's, I'll write about, maybe the way it affects me, but it's not, my story. It's kind of an outside look at somebody close to me, like whether it's a breakup or whatever they're going through. But there's a song, there's Snowbirds. There's a really cool video. If you go check it out, there's videos of me flying with them and everything in that music video. And then there's another music video called Flying, a song called Flying. It's on my I Rise EP. And I actually got to film that at 3 Wing Baggetville. It's one of 2 fighter bases in Canada, where ultimately I think it was that same year, 2017, I met this young buck, this young pilot in the military, training, and always wanted to be a fighter pilot. And I thought it was really cool because he was super young, you know, and he was training to do what I always wanted to do. And we ended up, I think we connected on Instagram, and then he came to a songwriters round with a friend of his, Richie. And this is actually kind of crazy as now I'm talking about it. So they came to this little songwriters round, you know, there's maybe fits like 80 to 100 people in this room, but I got to meet them in person. And, you know, we're still really good friends to this day. And long story short, Freddie became a fighter pilot. He flies the CF-18 Hornet, and he's now an airline pilot, just like Marcus was, which is crazy. And Richie, at the time, was flying a Hercules CH-130, so he was refueling aircraft. Ended up being the safety pilot, Snowbird 11, on the Snowbirds team for the last 3-4 years. And ultimately, when we were doing, I think it was called something Hope, I believe. I might be messing it up, but when COVID was happening and they couldn't do their full, you know, air shows, they were going from town to town, city to city, across Canada, and, you know, just showing their support. And, you know, when people see the Snowbirds, it's and that's kind of what got me to write that song as well. But unfortunately that year, actually, yeah, that was out of Comox, which is where I think I met Gina. Richie and Jen, the public affairs officer who flies with Richie, that's a side-by-side airplane. It was a training aircraft that was built by Canada in the late 50s into the early 60s, where it came in to be used as our primary jet trainer. So now that's obviously the jet the Snowbirds use, but it's very neat because the pilot and tech, they don't fly in air shows together, but the pilot and tech will transit together from show to show, right? And on this flight, it was kind of it was very tragic, you know, in the Air Force world, but also in Canada because of the mission that they were doing to give Canada hope during these hard times and dark times of COVID. Richie and Jen had a bird strike immediately after takeoff, and they pulled up to, you know, I forget the name of the pole, but you basically pull up as high as you can to get away from the ground and try to figure out what the heck's going on. And unfortunately, they could not get a relight, which is relighting the jet engine, stalled, and Richie was able to eject, but Jen was not. So it was kind of, you know, crazy to think that out of all the pilots that have been on that force, this just happened to be a pilot that I call a friend, and you know, someone that I knew. And it was like, when that stuff happens, it was always like, what airplane was it? What jet was it? Right? They have 1 to 11 jets, but you know all of them, and you go like, holy crap! Like, who is it? You know, did they survive? Did they get out in time? So that was a very intense time, and but also just a quick glimpse on how quick things can happen, how beautiful it is what they do, but how serious of a job it actually is. And you know, and that being said, it's you know, where I met Richie and then Fred, you know, where I got to record, where I got to film on base. I'm literally standing on top of fighter jets, singing in the hangars and on the base, and it was a total bucket list. And now looking back and even getting to talk about it, it's like, man, I might not have become a fighter pilot, but I'm a private pilot. But I know I can also do more things and add on to my license. But I've had these incredible moments and memories and coincidences and incidents in my life that allowed me to be close to these fighter pilots, to the Snowbirds team, and be right in the nick of it all with them, and get these opportunities to record music videos on a fighter base with these jets, with these pilots. So it's kind of, you know, I look back and go, you know what, like you said, the A to B and you know, C to D and wherever, how many letters get joined up, but it's pretty amazing. And you know, how all these things have kind of played out through my life, and go, holy crap, it's actually, these things are all happening. Might not be, you know, someone's told me it's never the way you think it's going to be. It's never, I wasn't a snowbird pilot, but I got to sit on the wing after my flight with all those guys in their red jumpsuits. And I was like, I was part of the team, you know, and some of them were said like forever. And the crazy thing is, I know I see now I get it. My fiance always says that once you get started with snowbirds and planes, it's like you go off. But this is another thing of one of those connecting the dots thing that happened. So you asked me how I got to fly with them, right? That was one of the questions. And so we were celebrating Canada Day in North Bay, and they had myself as one of the entertainers. They had some live entertainment, and they had me as one of the headliners. So I was performing, but I didn't know that the mayor, knowing that my passion for this, for the snowbirds, them coming to town, there was media flights available. So they had signed me up for the media flight. And unfortunately, the weather wasn't cooperating, so I couldn't get the flight that day. But I was playing not only at the waterfront as the headliner, but the night before when the snowbirds come in. Ironically enough, they were there for. They usually don't do that. They're usually in and out, maybe a day. But they stayed in North Bay for about 5 days until their next show. So when they came in, I think it was a Thursday night. I was playing at a bar, and they knew they were coming to North Bay, and I was from North Bay, so some of them reached out. And ironically enough, that year, almost 20 years to the day, it was Snowbird 8, FOMO, reached out and was like, "Hey, man, I think we started connecting." He's like, "Dude, my wife actually is a fan of your music." And she referenced me as man bun because sometimes I put my hair up, and I hate that term. I call it the mun. But I was like, what are the odds that of all the pilots this year, and it's that number, that jet number 8 sends me a message, and his wife at the time, or actually wasn't his wife yet. Cool thing, he proposed while he was doing the heart at an air show, and his wife's name is his now wife. His name is Emily, and I had just met Emily, who I'm now engaged with that year. But on that team, there was Snowbird 8, 5, and Snowbird 9, and so these are the little things that could sound crazy, but so FOMO was in the 8 jet. Craig, who reached out to me, who's now with Emily, I'm with an Emily. Hitman number 5, and in between us, we both share the same birthday. And the pilot that I was flying with in the 9 jet, him and Emily, my Emily, shared the same birthday. So I'm like, what the hell are the
That's
odds?
amazing.
And it's 20 years later, and here I am flying, and I'm looking over in the jet we're about to take off. They're looking over at me like, you're thinking, aren't you guys focused? But they're looking over, going like, yeah, man, let's do it, man, let's go. And ever since then, it's been like you meet those pilots, they switch out every 2 years. So there's different. I believe it's 4 different pilots leave and four new ones come in, and then the next 4 leave and another 4 come in. But yeah, that's how I got my flight with the Snowbirds.
That's incredible.
Because I was playing a festival called Peach Fest over in BC, and the pilot that I flew with, Nacho, he says, "Well, why don't you come in flying the day before? I mean, we're there that day, and we'll get you up. We'll be able to fly. We'll get your flight, and we'll make sure to put your name in, and then you could stay with me." And so I got to fly. So I flew in the day before. I stayed with them, roomed with them. It was his birthday, so at the same time, I'm at his birthday party after our flight, and I got to FaceTime Emily. We weren't engaged at the time, but this is crazy going back, whatever it is, 7 years. But I'm wishing her a happy birthday while I'm, wishing we're having, his party. And then the following day, I left and went and played a festival. But we've all kept in touch since then. Like Emily and I went to an air show just outside of Toronto where FOMO, Snowbird 8 that year. He's now out of the military, but he's an Air Canada pilot. But he formed up an aerobatic air show team in pit specials. These little, those little biplanes that you see that do all the twirls, and he formed a team with them. So wherever they were close to us, we'd go watch the air show. And just as I say that, yesterday morning, that's how I started my day, was through a friend on Instagram in Akron, Ohio, and he's like, "Dude, it's a perfect day to fly. Let's go. I've never been in the pits before." So I went and did loops and hammerheads and everything with him just yesterday. And it was like, now I want to buy pits.
Wow, that's incredible. There's so many, like what I say, coincidences, the
It's pretty
birthdays,
wild.
the names. As you were going through that, I was like, wait a minute, he just said Emily, now he's saying Emily again, And it's funny because my mom, whose dad was, the same birthday as me, my mom's
Yep.
name was Emily. So you got a third Emily in that story.
That's and what's crazy, Catherine, is you remind me of Gina a little bit, which as soon as we got on, I was like, holy crap. It's kind of like you guys could almost be sisters. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I always
It's funny
say
how
we have
things just get
twins, right?
yeah, you never know. It's wild how some of these things happen though. Like I often wonder sometimes, like, why is this person in my life, or how did I meet this person at this time, and now all of a sudden it's like one of the most important people, or one of my best friends or whatever. It's pretty crazy, and I've been surrounded with some pretty beautiful people, including, not only my family, but and I've had, friends since I was 4 years old that are still my best friends. And I know not a lot of people get that opportunity. But I've made a lot of incredible people and friends along the way, and continue to do that. So it's a pretty it's a wild ride.
Yes. Well, I say one thing about friends, which always turns out to be true. You have to be a friend to have a friend. So
Yeah, yeah,
you're a
yeah.
great friend. That's why you have friends. And that's why, they're around as long as you're around, because there's no reason for them to leave.
Well,
So there you
it's
go.
it's a it's a it's a very nice thing to have.
That's right. I wanted to go back because every time you tell these stories about flying, you're referencing that you were performing. So when did you think that were you a bar band? Like Glass Tiger was a bar band, they were playing
Hmm.
one bar to another bar, and people started to notice them. So did you start as part of being a bar band? Were you,
Oh yeah,
starting to
oh
be
yeah.
in a competition like Travis Cormier? Like, what is your back to that all story?
No, so when things didn't work out at RMC, at the Royal Military College of Canada, things didn't work out, and it's almost like it wasn't meant to be. But I still kept that aviation connection, and like what we were just discussing. So it's kind of wild. Um, what happened was I started playing just in my basement, in between like studying and stuff. And I would post up on Facebook and YouTube just to get a feel of, like, because I'm going, hey, I think it sounds pretty good. Obviously you gotta, it matters. It doesn't matter what I think, it matters what the listeners think. So, I started getting comments, and like really cool stuff was happening. And so I guess my teammates got a hold of that, and obviously they saw it on Facebook or whatever. So this is in Kingston, Ontario, where the Royal Military College is, and my hockey teammates at RMC, the Paladins. We were out one night, and I always give him a shout out because it's really one of the main reasons I started. His name is Smitty. He's a local legend. He now owns a bar there called the Buckle in Kingston, Ontario, and he's been a huge supporter and fan, and he's a great talent himself. And I've actually played his bar. I think it was like he just opened it, not this year but last year. So I played his grand opening, and then I came back this summer to celebrate the 1 year anniversary. And I love Kingston. It was some of the best times of my life, even though it was short lived. So we go out to the bar, and Smitty was playing, and he does everything. He just plays for 4 hours and does everything, like his own stuff and all the covers. And so I guess what happened is that the guys went up and told him, said, "Hey, when you take your break, call our buddy up to the stage." And my call sign or nickname was Sunshine, because even then, because I wasn't officially in yet, I was able to keep my hair. So they were referencing Remember the Titans, the football movie, the star quarterback, Sunshine. So they gave me that name right away, Sunshine. So Smitty's about to take his break, and we're out at the bar, and we're feeling no pain, of course. And so I'm going to take a break, but I'm going to invite a friend up here, and we're going to get Sunshine up to sing a few songs. And I'm going like, what? And the whole table like looks at me. I'm like, what did you guys do, man? I'm like, there's no way. I'm not singing in front of anybody. I had never sang in front of anyone like that. And there's, maybe 100 people at the bar, but then everyone starts going, Cory or Sunshine, Sunshine. So they get me up, and sure enough, oh God, I was so nervous, but I threw back whatever I had left in that glass and got up there. And I think I sang, I want to say it was one or two originals, and believe it or not, I did like Carrie Underwood and a Rascal Flat cover at the time, and maybe a Sex on Fire was one of the big songs that I did back when I first started, and people were loving. But then people came up to me like, where else do you play? Do you have a CD out, or an album? And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. Like what the hell does this all mean? So every week I'd go up for 3 or 4 songs. Smitty would have me up until it got to a point where it was time to the next semester was supposed to go through, and they wanted me to wait a little bit longer. And it kind of was like, well, that wasn't the deal. So my brother's girlfriend at the time was like, well, if you don't want to stay there and you want to come back home, if you feeling this music thing, just see what's up. We could pay a couple $100, come play for us every Wednesday. And I made the decision I'm going to go back home, and I did that. And then I was doing that, playing upper bar called Chamboli's, and I would play for 3 hours from whatever it was, 10 to 1. But I'd have all my friends and family there. So it was like a big kitchen party. It almost reminded me of back when I got to celebrate my birthdays with my grandfather, having just friends and family, just a party, and you're just playing. So even though I was nervous, I was reading off a laptop and nervous as all hell. It was still a lot of fun. And then on Thursday nights, I would go up and do an acoustic opening for this band at the Fox and Fiddle and get $45. And then I started, okay, I got a bass player. Then my dad was one of my first drummers. And it was really wild. And then until I started like doing festivals and fairs, and then one thing led to another. And I guess, as they say, I caught the bug that night in Kingston and never looked back. And here I am 13 years later. And it's like, wow, there's still so many of those people in my life. For example, when I was in Toronto doing some promo for one of these songs, actually, this was last November. It's crazy. I think that was a year ago. Wow. I met up with one of my best friends on the team, Justin Lacey. And it was just kind of like, yo, you're in Toronto? I'm like, yeah. And we were like at the same hotel. Of course, I was supposed to get rest that night, but we didn't get any rest. We threw it back like we were back in Kingston. So it was a lot of fun. But that's kind of how it all transpired and brought me to where I am today.
That's amazing. Your story is so great because there are a lot of people right now that are just kind of trying it out on social media, and it's catching on. The only thing that a lot of my guests on this program have kind of enlightened me about is that when you're singing on social media, you're singing kind of to no one, So the comments start flying in, but when you really need to perform, you really have to perform. And that's where they find the division. There's like a dividing line. So I think that all your experiences, like having the guts to want to fly and then having the guts to be on ice, you're a bit of a risk taker. You might be a thrill seeker. So
Some
I
would
think,
say.
I think so. But I think all of those things in your personality is what has really launched you into success, because your voice is your voice, but to have the ability to work the stage, to interact with the fans, but also make the music come alive,
Yeah.
And I think part of that is really taking a risk, and you've done that, but you've also been able to identify, and I say this so often in life, it's, you've really arrived when you can actually realize something within yourself and you feel like you're really connected, but not connected. When there's this feeling of ambivalence, like perhaps, your experience with moving forward with the military school, or, certain things give you this feeling that you say like, wait a minute, I need to like listen to my gut right here, and a lot of people don't trust their gut, but 9 times out of 10, it's always your gut that's, leading you in the right direction. So,
Or saying, I told you so.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so true. Your stories are so amazing. I mean, I don't want to make
Thank
a
you.
psychic prediction, but you might have to write a book or something, because these are really great stories. Really great
You know what?
stories.
A lot of my friends and close family that know my story and know a lot of the good, the bad, the ugly, and all the experiences and the ups and the downs. It's funny. My fiance actually said that today. I forget what we were talking about. She's like, "Yeah, well, you could put that in your biography one day, in your book one day." And even my friend Eddie back home, he's like, "Man," he's like, and this even goes back like 5 years ago. He would say, "It's just the stuff that you've done in your lifetime. Like you could probably write 2 or 3 books, of just the experience and things that you've done." And sometimes you got to take a step back and be like, "Wait a minute, yeah." When you have those hard days where you're kind of trying to find yourself, or like, "What the hell am I doing?" Or this isn't working out, or you got to try to find the light. And I think it's really important, and I say that to myself as well. Like some of these things, it's not always about money. None of it's really about money. It's obviously, it helps, it's nice, but there's other things that are very important. And you got to think, like I said, I've pretty much lived out my dreams. I've met most of my heroes. The only ones that sometimes they say, and maybe that's a sign, sometimes they say it's best not to meet your heroes, and just fall in love with what they did. But I never got to meet Neil Peart. I still have yet to meet Mike Tyson. I will make that happen one day. And my biggest thing is I'd love to meet and hopefully work with Bryan Adams at some point. The cool thing is that the first tour bus I was ever on was Merle Haggard's, and I got to meet Merle Haggard. So once I met him, I was like, I'm good. And I met Eric Church, ironically enough, too. This is actually one of those stories that you'd love. I'll make it quick, but we were in Toronto with my girlfriend at the time. This is, oh God, I was just starting out in music. Basically, I was 21 or 22, and we went to Toronto to go see Brad Paisley. And there was this guy called Eric Church that was opening for him, And I was like, oh, that's that. My brother likes one of his songs. The Guys Like Me. It talks about skull rings. My brother was chewing a lot back then, right? Of course, a hockey player. And so we're there, and we see a show, and I was like, holy, like was aw-. And I thought, that's what I want to do. Like, he's playing country, but he does like Black Sabbath intros and outros. I'm like, that's what I want to do, like, you know. And lo and behold, he's a huge Merle Haggard fan too, and had Merle sing on one of his songs. But we're walking around the building, and this young girl, maybe 8 years old, whatever, is crying with her mom, and they're going down this hall, whatever. And I think it was by the washrooms or something. And she just randomly goes, and even now, like the conversation is like, well, why the hell did that happen to me? She goes, hey, do you want these? I'm like, what are they? Like, it's something like meet and greet. See, I haven't said that story in a long time, so I said it backwards. This happened before I saw her at church. She goes, it's a meet and greet for, you know, to go meet this guy. And I'm like, okay. She's like, well, I just can't take her, and you guys, if you want to meet. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So I'm looking like a meet and greet. Okay, so I'm walking down. I remember walking down. I go, it's Eric Church, and I got shook his hand. We got a picture, and then I saw him live, and that's when I was like, that's what I want to do, because I love Brad Paisley. So there's that country, you know, effect there, but then there's Eric Church who had that rock element. I was like, this is so cool. But yeah, so I got to meet Eric Church all about in the same time frame. I met Eric Church, and I met Merle Haggard, and at that point in time, I was like, that's like the pinnacle for me in country music. You know, like I've met my two favorites of all time. So
That
I
is
thought that
so
was really, really
great.
cool.
That is so great. I'm like a New York City girl, and everyone laughs at me because I'm really friends with a lot of people in heavy metal and rock and stuff. But I take
Mhm.
country music line dancing every week at the local high
Oh wow,
school.
good for
And my
you.
favorite
So two
song,
stepping.
yeah, well, my favorite song is when he puts on Eric Church. It's the roller coaster song, you know? So he does on the roller coaster, you know that song?
Roller coaster ride.
Exactly. So
Yeah, of
when that
course.
song comes on, we do the, we do the Charleston, the CC Shuffle, I think it's called. But
That's really
yeah.
cool. That's really cool. That was one of my favorite songs on that record, just because of I thought melodically and the production on it. It's really, really, it's just a cool song.
Yeah, well, it's actually one of the easiest dances to do to that song. You just like forget you're doing it because country line is
Hmm.
hard. A lot of people can't
Oh,
pick it
yeah,
up, you know. But here, this little New York City girl is doing it, so
there you go. Good
so
job.
anyone can do it, right? Very
Absolutely.
good. Well, I'm so excited. I love these stories. I'm endorsing you to have a book. I'm endorsing you to have 3 books. How many more
Thank
you
you.
want to write? But you know, believe it or not, sometimes when people say I can't write a book, your songs, like just your lyrics alone, you may even be very good at doing like poetry. Because when you
Mm,
started to talk about your friend, the bittersweet story about, about his tragic passing, a lot of those very tough stories to tell come out really
hmm
well, in a poem,
hmm
or they come out really well
Absolutely.
in lyrics.
In a song.
So, yeah, it's really amazing. It's pretty incredible. So, talk about the music. I know I'm going to be playing Fast as I Can, which is your new
Hmm.
hit. You have Guilty. I was playing Guilty last night. You have Make My Country Rock, which I was
Hmm.
dancing, and my cats were looking at me like I was just really
Love
out
it.
of control.
Love it.
So tell me about those 3 songs because those to me are the ones that I'm really like kind of ignited to.
Well, so they're all going to be on this album, Sorry for Nothing, that comes out December 6th. And Make My Country Rock is now into top 30 at US Rock Radio. I found that out just this morning. So that's really, really super exciting. Fast as I Can, I think it's, it's just a feel good, upbeat, bit of a love story type song. And I really think it's meant for country radio, but not fixated in a certain box. It's got a little Brian Adams in there. I like to say it's a mix of like Brian Adams and Luke Combs, but I think it's a fun, good sing along, stomp your foot to song that I really love, and I'm really having fun playing it on this tour, on this unplugged tour with Theory of a Dead Man. But I also I've been playing it all summer with the band, and it just sounds, you can just tell by the second chorus. It's not a really complicated song, so it's just a lot of fun. So I think that's easy for the listener. Guilty, I endorse you can hear that metal background a little bit, and the kind of higher range vocals, and that features, of course, DL of Bad Wolves, who just crushes it on that song. And there's a bit of a Lamb of God breakdown there that Kile Odell, the producer of that track, through, and which I absolutely love. But of course, going back to Make My Country Rock, I mean, features good friends of mine now, which is crazy to say, but Travis Tritt and Mick Mars are back on this song. And then, of course, Solly Erna of Godsmack. But we just released, last Friday, we just released a newer version of it. It's I like to call it the beefed up version. So we're singing a little harder. The drums are a little bit bigger, and Cody of Wage War also threw on some more guitar. So it's called Make My Country Rock Harder, and that's out and available everywhere now too. So, and then of course the title track to this album, Sorry for Nothing, I've been playing on the tour too, and having people dealing with addictions or sobriety and stuff. And it's kind of tells my story of growing up a little bit, you know, small town stories, you know, and that's basically after all this hard work and all this stuff, you know, all the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and downs. I thought it was a cool, and it's such a powerful song. I think that, you know, that I love so much. And you know, it's one of my favorites that I've written so far, just because we went really deep for this one, dug deep and, you know, kind of look back on life and where you are now, where you're heading. And I think it's a perfect title, Sorry for Nothing, because, you know, it is what it is. I am what I am. And I've been through what I've been through, and you kind of can't look back and only ahead. So, you know, I think that's a very special song. There's a lot of songs on this. I mean, it's 14 tracks. I've been writing so much over the last couple of years. We basically had to pick those 14 because those are the 14 I wanted out first out of probably 100 songs that I wrote. And it's a really special album to me, and I hope the world loves it. And I can't wait for it to be out to the world December 6th for everybody to hear.
Very awesome. So now just plug your social media and tell people where they can find you and stream your music and buy your albums.
Well, any and all information is on my website, CoryMarks.com. But of course, wherever you stream your music, follow me, especially if you're on Spotify or Pandora, follow me on there. Download and stream for all the updates. And of course, you can follow me. I do all my own social media. So Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it now, and Threads. It's at Cory Marks Music. So at Cory Marks Music, follow me. And it's going to be me talking to you, and hope you like what you see and love what you hear.
Wow. Well, this interview has been explosive. You are a very powerful person, and you're really a dear heart. You really have a dear heart, and I really appreciate speaking to you. Thank you for writing the music for all of us to dance to, especially me.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Very good. So we're going to roll out with Fast As I Can, and good luck on your tour, and stay well. It was a pleasure talking to you, Cory.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, and we'll be chatting again soon,
Yes.
Kevin. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
She had a smile like fireworks, lit up this bar just like the 4th of July. Southern drawl in her words. She walked up, said, "Hey, y'all," and I said hi. She told me all about her life, and I told her all about mine. Never been to Texas, never been to Georgia, never walked Daytona Sand, never been to Memphis, North Carolina, never danced to a Bourbon Street band. If that's where girls like you come from, I'm gonna get there as fast as I can.